When every door seems to close, God opens a path you never knew existed. We've all had moments when life feels unbearably heavy. When dreams crumble, relationships break, and the light ahead seems to fade. We try our best. We fight with all our strength. And yet everything still slips away like sand between our fingers. And in those silent, painful moments, a small voice whispers in our hearts, "Put your hope in God. All things are possible." God never promised that the road would be easy, but He did promise that we would never have to walk it alone. Sometimes He allows us to wander through deserts of despair, not to abandon us, but to teach us how to find the oasis of faith within our own souls. Only when we lift our eyes to Him do we begin to see that every trial carries purpose, and every tear holds the seed of a miracle waiting to bloom. When we pray, we are not only speaking to God, we are also awakening the deepest part of ourselves, the place where peace and faith dwell. The miracle might not come instantly, but perhaps the greatest miracle of all is the strength to stand. When we no longer believe we can, there are people who have lost everything: their jobs, their families, their reputation. Yet they still hold tightly to the belief that God is holding their hand, and that faith, quiet yet unshakable, becomes the power that lifts them from the ashes. For when we trust in God, we do not merely believe in a higher power. We surrender our hearts to His love, comfort, and infinite mercy. Hope in God is not a naive dream. It is a light that shines through the darkness of the soul, a gentle, steady flame that refuses to die. God may not change our circumstances immediately, but He changes our hearts so that we can see those circumstances through the eyes of faith. When you are surrounded by darkness, do not be afraid. Close your eyes, breathe deeply, and whisper, "Lord, I trust You." You will feel something shift within you. Though the storm outside still rages, a quiet calm begins to rise in your heart. Because faith does not always remove the storm. It gives us the strength to stand firm within it. Remember this: God has never forgotten you, even when it feels like nothing is happening. He is still working, silently, patiently, arranging every broken piece of your life into something beautiful. One day, when you look back, you will understand. Every tear, every hardship, every waiting moment had a purpose. So, do not lose hope. Do not let fear dim the light of your faith. Believe that no matter where you are or what you face, God is holding your hand. All things are possible when you place your hope in Him, and when you finally learn to let go of control, to stop clinging to worrying, and allow God to lead the way. You'll discover something extraordinary. What you thought was an ending was never an end at all. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with faith, peace, and the kind of miracles that only God can create. When the wind rises, the weak lose heart. But those who trust in God know that every storm is just a test to prove that He is still there. Life is full of storms. Some strike without warning, sweeping away everything we thought was secure: our peace, our plans, even our hope. Some people lose loved ones. Others lose their jobs, their confidence, or the sense of direction that once guided them. We look up at the dark sky and cry out, "Lord, where are You in all of this?" But it is in those very moments of chaos that God works most powerfully. He doesn't always calm the storm, because He knows that storms are necessary. No gentle rain can cleanse the soul like the tears of trial. It is within the tempest that faith is refined, patience is forged, and the heart learns to find peace amid the waves. If life were all sunshine, how would we ever know the strength of our faith? When everything collapses, faith becomes the only thing left to hold on to, like an anchor keeping the ship of your soul from being swept away by the raging sea. A person of faith is not one who never feels fear, but one who chooses to keep walking despite it, believing that God walks beside them. You may be facing a storm right now, a painful loss, a crushing disappointment, or a season of uncertainty. But remember, God has not abandoned you. He is teaching you how to recognize His presence even in the fiercest winds. When you lift your face amid the rain and whisper, "Lord, I still believe," that is the moment your faith begins to overcome your fear. God does not ask you to be strong forever. He only asks that you stay faithful in this moment. Sometimes, faith isn't climbing a mountain. It's simply refusing to let go of His hand no matter how hard the wind blows. And then, when the storm passes, the sunlight will shine brighter than ever before. In the Bible, the disciples once panicked as their boat was tossed by waves. While Jesus slept peacefully nearby, terrified, they cried out, "Teacher, don't you care if we drown?" Jesus rose, rebuked the wind, and said, "Why are you so afraid? Where is your faith?" And the sea became calm. That story still echoes today, not just to show that God can calm the sea, but to remind us that He Himself is the calm within every storm. Faith doesn't make life a paradise. It gives you the strength to smile even while the rain still falls. When you trust that God is in control, you no longer fear the future, because you know the ending is already written by His loving hand. And here's the miracle: when you stop complaining and start thanking Him, even the storm within your heart begins to fade. If you are facing your own storm, a heartbreak, a failure, a secret pain, remember this: God is in the eye of the storm, watching over you, holding you close. He might not silence the wind right away, but He's making you stronger, so that when the storm ends, you'll stand firm and shaken. Faith isn't the absence of doubt. It's believing even when you don't understand. God isn't angry when you're afraid. He only asks that you never let go of Him. Think back to all the times you thought you couldn't go on. Yet here you are, still breathing, still standing, still believing. That alone is proof that God has never left your side. Not for a single moment. Every tear you shed was seen by Him, and every prayer you whispered was heard. If you are walking through a storm right now, leave a comment below. I still believe. Those 3 words may be simple, but they carry the power to inspire someone else who is standing in their own storm, looking for a hope.com. And if these words have touched your heart, click like, not from me, but as a way to say, "Yes, Lord, I still trust you," because sometimes a simple act of faith can shine brighter than 1,000 words. The storm will pass, but true faith remains forever. And when you finally step out of it, you won't be the same. You'll be stronger, wiser, and overflowing with grace. True peace doesn't come when everything is perfect. It comes when you trust that, no matter what happens, God is in control. After every storm, when the thunder finally quiets and the sky begins to clear, we realize something profound. There is a treasure far greater than victory. It is peace. Not the fragile peace that depends on good circumstances, but the deep, unshakable peace that comes from knowing God never changes, even when everything else does. Many people believe peace only comes when life is easy, when problems disappear, and everything falls into place. But the peace that comes from God isn't tied to circumstances. It flows from faith, from the quiet confidence that He is in control. You may be standing in the middle of chaos, yet your heart can still rest, because you know you are not standing alone. Peace in God begins the moment you stop trying to control everything. It comes when you stop worrying about what's next and start trusting that whatever happens, God will make it work together for good. You might not understand the reason yet, but God doesn't need you to understand. He just needs you to trust and rest in Him. Jesus said, "Peace I leave with you. My peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives." John 14:27. That promise holds a divine truth. The world's peace can be stolen in an instant. By bad news, by fear, by loss. But the peace of God is like an eternal flame within the heart. Not the storm, No darkness, no pain can ever extinguish it. When you live in God's peace, small things no longer disturb you. You stop reacting with fear, and instead, you respond with calmness. You no longer chase happiness in fleeting things, because you found it in His presence, the place where your soul finally feels complete. Have you ever sat quietly at dawn, as sunlight slowly paints the sky, and felt a gentle stillness wash over your heart? That is the peace of God, the kind that can't be explained in words, only felt by a soul that is still and listening. People often say, when you can't change your situation, let God change your heart. And that's where peace begins. Not because the fire around you is gone, but because you've learned to walk through it without fear, protected by His grace. Sometimes God doesn't calm the storm, but He teaches you how to sail through it with faith. Peace isn't about escaping. It's about standing firm, knowing you are loved unconditionally. The world will try to shake you, but God whispers, "You are mine." That single phrase can silence every storm within, because if God is steering your boat, no wave can ever sink it. And sometimes, peace comes in the simplest of moments, when you finally lay down your burdens, forgive someone, or stop blaming yourself and whisper, "Lord, I give it all to you." Peace isn't the absence of noise. It's the stillness within the noise. It's when your heart stops shouting and starts trusting that God is holding every piece of your story. When you learn to surrender, you also learn to be free. If your heart feels restless today, take a moment to pause, breathe deeply and say, "Lord, please give me your peace." Then just listen. You'll feel His answer, not in words, but in a soft, quiet assurance that fills your soul. When you experience true peace in God, your eyes begin to see differently. You notice the miracles hidden in the ordinary. A smile, a breath, a sunrise, and you realize that peace is not a destination, but a way of walking with God every single day. When you let go, God can finally move. There are moments in life when we try to hold on to everything, our dreams, our plans, our relationships, even our fears. We believe that if we can control every detail, we won't have to face pain, loss, or disappointment. But the more tightly we hold, the more exhausted we become. It is only when we surrender to God that we finally discover what true freedom means. Surrender doesn't mean giving up. It means taking a deep breath, stopping the struggle and saying, "Lord, I can't, but you can." In that sacred moment, real strength begins to rise, not from our limited power, but from the Almighty One who lives within us. God doesn't ask us to understand everything. He simply asks us to trust and release, because sometimes the doors that stay closed aren't signs of failure. They're God's protection. Sometimes, losing something you wanted is just His way of making room for something far greater. Remember this truth. When you hold on, God stands still. When you let go, He begins to move. Surrendering doesn't mean we stop trying. It means we keep doing our best, but without fear or anxiety, because we know that the outcome rests safely in His hands. Scripture says, "Commit your way to the Lord, trust in Him, and He will act." Psalm 37:5. That is one of the sweetest promises. When we stop fighting on our own, God starts fighting for us. Some people think letting go means losing control. But in God's kingdom, letting go is how you gain everything. When you let go of worrying, you gain peace. When you let go of control, you gain freedom. When you let go of fear, you gain faith. Sometimes God allows your life to hit a dead end, not to punish you, but to make you realize that there's no other way but His way. And when you finally surrender, something miraculous happens. The burdens on your shoulders feel lighter, the noise in your mind fades, and a quiet, unexplainable peace fills your heart. That's the peace of God. Surrender is not weakness. It is the highest form of faith. It takes courage to say, I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I know who holds tomorrow. Maybe today you're standing at a crossroads. Your plans failed. Your heart is broken. Your path feels uncertain. Pause for a moment. Close your eyes. Place your hand over your heart and whisper, Lord, I give it all to you. Right there, in that breath of surrender, you will feel something powerful, soft but strong, invisible yet real, the comforting presence of God wrapping around your soul. Because God never lets your hand fall into the void. When you let go, He takes hold. When you're too tired to keep walking, He carries you. And when you think you've lost everything, He shows you that He is everything. Surrender doesn't always change your circumstances, but it changes you. It transforms anxiety into rest, fear into faith, and tears into peace. And one day, when you look back, you'll see how every worrying, every closed door, every unanswered prayer was woven perfectly into a greater plan. You will understand that nothing was ever wasted, that God had been preparing you for something better all along. So don't be afraid to let go. When you surrender everything into God's hands, you don't lose control. You place it in the hands of perfect love. And those hands have never failed anyone. Because the moment you surrender is the moment heaven begins to move. When you place your hope in God, nothing is impossible. Life doesn't always go the way we plan. There are nights filled with silent tears, and days when every door seems to close in front of us. But it's in those darkest moments that hope in God shines the brightest, like a small flame in the middle of endless night. It may be small, but it's enough to light the way and warm a heart that was growing cold. Hope isn't pretending that everything is fine. Hope is believing that in God's hands, everything will be made right. When you have hope, you stop focusing on the walls that block your path and start seeing the doors that God is preparing to open. When you hope, fear begins to fade, and faith takes its place. Maybe you've prayed many times and still haven't seen the answer. Maybe your hope has been tested through heartbreak, failure, or loneliness. But remember this, God's silence is never His absence. He is working quietly, behind the scenes, shaping every detail of your story, preparing something far better than what you've imagined. Hope is the strength that helps you rise after every fall. It's the small whisper within your heart saying, keep going, God is still here. And sometimes, right when you feel too tired to continue, you'll hear His gentle voice, my child, do not be afraid. I have been with you all along. God never promised life would be easy, but He did promise that you would never walk alone. That is where miracles begin, in the heart that refuses to give up, in the soul that dares to keep hoping. Those who place their hope in God are not weak. They are warriors of faith. They are the ones who keep smiling in storms, keep believing when others doubt, and keep loving even after being hurt, because they know that even when everything else is gone, God remains, and that is enough. In the Bible, Abraham believed when hope seemed lost. Moses stepped into the sea before it parted. Daniel held on to faith even in the lion's den. None of them had superhuman power. They simply had faith and hope in the Lord. And that alone was enough to turn the impossible into reality. So never stop hoping, not even for a moment. Every time you choose to believe instead of fear, to hope instead of despair, you're opening the door for God's miracle to enter your life. He may not answer today, but He has not forgotten you. God's timing is perfect, quiet, gentle, yet always right on time. Hope isn't waiting for a miracle to happen. Hope itself is the miracle. It gives your heart courage, lights up your eyes again, and gives your soul a reason to move forward. No matter how rough the road may be, one day, when you look back, you will realize that every trial, every tear, every moment of pain had a purpose. They brought you closer to God and helped you see that the greatest miracle is not when your situation changes, but when your heart does. If today you feel weary, lost, or as if your faith is fading, pause for a moment. Take a deep breath and whisper, "Lord, I trust you. Please give me hope once more." You'll feel his presence, steady, warm, and full of love. Because he's been there all along, waiting for you to believe again. With God, everything is possible. If these words touched your heart, take a moment to click like as a quiet prayer of gratitude to God and subscribe to the channel to continue walking this journey of faith together. Each video is a message of light, a small flame in a world that sometimes feels dark. And maybe, just maybe, your presence here today is the miracle someone else needs tomorrow.